Hi, my name is Jessica Brown, and my informative speech topic is fighting in professional sports. If you turn on the TV and flip through some of the sports channels, it is very likely that you could find a fight. Whether players are being held back by teammates or dropping the gloves with opponents is part of what makes sports so exciting and unpredictable. Fighting in professional sports draws concern over player safety, and many question if it should still be allowed. Fighting has been a big part of sports since the beginning, and it was up until the 80s that large aggressive brawls were allowed and extremely common. It was not until the infamous punch that people began to question its presence in sports. On December 9th, 1977, when attempting to break apart a fight between two players, Rudy Tomjanovich of the Houston Rockets was punched in the face by LA Laker Kermit Washington, a punch that nearly killed him. This clip from Hoops Madness shows the infamous event on the bottom right. Many refer to the punch as a major turning point in fighting in all professional sports, and a big contributor to rules placed on North American sports teams to prevent any further incidents. It was obvious that not only basketball, but all other professional leagues were never going to be the same after witnessing the horrific events that took place. NBA Commissioner David Stern said, "You can't discuss violence in any sport without thinking about what happened between Rudy and Kermit. It crystallized and focused and forever emblemized on the consciousness of all athletes what can happen." The attitude and tolerance of fighting between players was permanently altered over fear that something like this could happen again. Despite heavy rules and fines in place to prevent fighting, it is still seen throughout all types of sports and remains a large part of hockey culture. Even after watching the dangerous hit taken by Tomjanovich back in the 70s and knowing that the smallest of scuffles may result in suspensions and reparations for the team, players still choose to fight anyway. This begs the question, why do players fight? Apart from the obvious that sometimes people get upset, lose their temper and self-control, fights can actually be strategic. They boost morale, bringing excitement to the crowd and giving teams momentum. Often, when athletes start up a brawl with opponents, it is not necessarily to injure them, but instead to keep them in order. Whether it is a batter that is intentionally hit with a fastball in a baseball game, or a late hit on a vulnerable quarterback in a football game, players will start these fights to send a message, that message to all teams, that dirty plays will in no way be tolerated. Athletes' biggest argument in defense of fighting may sound counterintuitive, but it is that fighting actually makes the game safer. Former NHL left wing Brandon Prust is a strong proponent of this and recalls a game against Anaheim where the team's best player took a dirty hit that actually sent him to the hospital. Prust and the Duck dropped gloves and had a fight on the ice to show the entire NHL league that you cannot get away with those dangerous plays. In his article, Why We Fight, Prust states, "If you take away fighting, there's no real consequence for guys taking runs at each other. Players are forced to take responsibility for their actions, and it is a way to police themselves, to not make reckless hits on their opponents. The purpose of brawls is not to injure opponents, but instead to protect their teammates." I was surprised by the widespread support to keep allowing fighting, and also by how differently it is treated and perceived from sport to sport. Throughout my research, I have learned that Rudy Tomjanovich's horrific injury in the 70s was a rare and unusual circumstance. Fights are not as damaging to players and viewers as we might believe, and instead serve as a way to uphold unwritten rules, change the momentum of games, and most importantly, protect teammates from being seriously injured. After years of attempting to limit and ban fighting in sports, it continues to remain an important part of the game and is in its culture with no intention to leave its place.